Unlike what the world of cinema or television drama would have the public believe, ordinary citizens just didn't get their hands on guns, train themselves to be a sharpshooter, and hire themselves out as assassins at £1,000,000 a hit. No, this killer was bound to be some disaffected sod with a grudge against coppers, or some nutter perhaps suffering from his time spent in a war zone who just felt like carrying on killing. And cops weren't soldiers exactly, or the enemy, but they weren't exactly civilians either. He could see how that might appeal to someone's twisted sort of logic. None of which made him feel any happier as he approached HQ. He couldn't help but wonder if somewhere, maybe from a bedroom window or one of the houses in the small, unassuming town of Kidlington, a man with a gun was affixing a sight to his rifle. Getting ready. Detective Inspector Hillary Green blew across the top of her coffee mug and watched Mike Regis, a DI from Vice out of St. Aldate's Nick, rifle through a small cupboard in search of cornflakes. "I'm all out," she said flatly. Regis grunted and straightened up, shaking his head. "I'm not surprised. You can't store a day's worth of food in these Mickey Mouse contraptions." So saying, he flicked shut the narrow cupboard door and turned around, bumping his elbow on the tap in the sink as he did so. He winced and rubbed his arm, and Hillary sighed. "Once you've lived on a boat for a while, you get used to moving about in a narrow space. It becomes second nature. You don't even realise you're doing it." But even as she spoke, she knew he was hardly feeling mollified. She had moved on to the Mollern, a narrowboat moored in Thrupp, just outside Kidlington, after her corrupt and useless prat of a husband had finally gone one step too far. The fact that he died shortly thereafter in a car accident hadn't meant her return to more conventional living quarters, and now, after nearly 4 years on the boat, she couldn't imagine living anywhere else. A fact that her lover, Mike Regis, was only just beginning to seriously take on board. He watched her now, his cat-green eyes wavering between bewilderment and resentment. He wasn't a big man, but he felt, as he always did whenever staying overnight with Hillary, like a very large bull in a very small china shop. "You got bread at least? Some toast too much to hope for?" Hillary grinned and, taking pity on him, reached into a minuscule fridge, recessed under the fold-down eating counter, and pulled out a half loaf of sliced wholemeal. "Think you can get it into the toaster without dislocating something?" she asked, forcing a reluctant smile out of him. She watched him for a while, very much aware of a strange, restless feeling creeping over her. After her disastrous marriage to a womanizing bent copper, Hillary had lived the first few years of her widowhood a happier, wiser, and celibate woman. The advent of Mike Regis in her life had coincided with her first murder case as acting senior investigating officer. At first, she'd resisted the mutual attraction between them, not least because Regis had still technically been married. But with his divorce last year, they'd finally taken the plunge and embarked on a discreet and mutually satisfying affair. Naturally, news of it had slowly leaked at HQ, but since they were both free and over 21, and not even working out of the same station house, they hadn't even been a 9 days wonder, maybe 2.5 days at the most. But things weren't working out. Hillary knew it, and she suspected Mike knew it, but wasn't about to be the first to admit it. Part of the problem was, without doubt, the Mollern. Hillary had no intention of moving into Mike's spacious and thoroughly nice flat in Botley, and Mike wouldn't live on the Mollern if he was paid to. But more than that, Hillary had no intention of ever marrying again. Once was more than enough for any woman of intelligence, in her opinion, but she rather suspected that Mike Regis was thinking in terms of acquiring a second wife. He had children by his first wife, and didn't seem to want any more, so that issue at least was one they had managed to avoid. At 45, Hillary had no plans for motherhood either. So where did all that leave them exactly? "It's burning," Hillary said quietly. Mike swore and quickly rescued his smoking bread from the toaster. He'd been investigating the shoebox that passed for a fridge for signs of margarine, but hadn't found any. However, in the back of the tiny cupboard...